Hi there! Today on the bench is a Yaesu FT-900 amateur transceiver. Yet again another non-virgin failure. I'm getting pummeled with these. Gee, I wonder what's going to be inside this one. So, at any rate, the complaint with this one is that it has no audio and they couldn't get any audio out of the thing. So that's pretty much what we're going to be hunting down, and hopefully there's no other problems with the thing now either. So just like in all the other videos, let's go through this together, troubleshoot this, and bring it back to its happy self yet once again. Let's get into it. We're now ready to diagnose this Yaesu FT-900 transceiver. The very first thing you should do before you put power to this thing requires a separate 12-volt power supply. So the very first thing you should do is check to make sure that you don't have any dead shorts in this jack in the back here. Just get my light on that. So this is kind of tricky though, because in this jack on the back side of the radio here, from side to side you'll measure a dead short because they've bridged some pins in here in order to up the current handling capability of this jack. So from side to side, the two bottom ones are bridged, and the two that are up from the bottom are also bridged side to side. Now up and down they should read high resistance because that's where your 12-volt supply goes into. But side to side they will measure a dead short. Now I've already tested this and it seems to be okay. You got to remember that this radio has had other hands in it, so you really don't know what to expect at this point, and it's always good just to check that. So I'm ready to put a 12-volt supply to it here. I'll just plug this jack in the back like so. It's ready to go. Now I'm also, while I've got this turned around, I'm going to plug in my Marconi Instruments analyzer into the back of this, because when we turn this on, if this thing goes right into transmit mode, I don't want this just transmitting into nothing. So this way it'll be into a dummy load. So what I'll do is I'll just plug this in here like that and screw that on tight, and we're pretty much ready to go at that point. So I'll move this out of the way. I'll turn on the Marconi Instruments analyzer. Okay, and I'm going to put it to TX test. So we're there, put it on to AM. And we're pretty much ready to go at that point. With my light, I'm getting some shadowing here. So now the complaint on this again was that there's no audio. Now I don't know whether that's transmit audio or receive audio or both or what it is. But before we turn this thing on to actually start diagnosing this, we should do a couple things first. Make sure the MOX button is out so that it's not in transmit mode. Make sure the RF power is down here. Okay, and we should also make sure that the audio gain's down and the squelch is down. And that way we're kind of ready to go as soon as we turn this thing on. If I turn it on and it goes right into transmit mode and I see this thing, showing me a frequency and it's transmitting, I'm just going to shut it off right away, because at that point there's, it's jammed in transmit mode. So we're ready to go. Let's turn it on. And it defaults to 7 megahertz. The light's green, which means it's in receive, and I don't see any transmit power on the display over here, which is a good sign. So again, the problem is no receive or transmit audio, so I'm going to turn the audio frequency gain up here. There's absolutely nothing coming out of the speaker. So it's quiet. Now I don't know if that's also going to be the same for transmit mode. So let's test the RF power first. I'm going to put this in the AM mode here. I'm also going to lock the dial because I'm moving around here. These dials are very sensitive. You bump them and they'll go out of band. If these radios, if you bump them out of band, out of the ham bands, they won't transmit at all, and sometimes it leads to a bit of confusion. So it's always good to get this within a ham band and of course have it into a dummy load, and then when you're testing it, lock the dial so that way it's not going to go out. Because I've done that a few times. You move over and you bump the dial like this and it rolls out of the ham band, and you don't know why it's not giving you any power output when it goes into the kind of the general mode. So the RF power is down here. I have it on AM, so let's see how much AM power we get out of this. I'll try and zoom into the screen here a little bit without my face getting into the shot, because I'm sitting off to the side here. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. Here we go, RF power. I'm going to use the microphone here. See the microphone right here? Push to talk. I'm just going to push the side of the mic. Okay, here we go. So the RF power is right down to nothing, and I can see the AM is moving as I'm talking, so it looks like we do have audio, and I'll check that in just a second. So you got 1.8 watts with the RF power right down at the bottom. Let's turn it right up to the top. It's about 21.1 or 21.3 watts, something like that. Okay, I'll just put this on scope, and I'll default that back twice, and I'll go here. Hello, hello, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, okay. So at this point we can see that we have audio, and it seems to be producing audio. That's in the AM mode. So we have transmitted audio, which is a good thing. So let's put this into sideband here, lower sideband, and see if I have any audio there. Oh yeah, there's lots of audio there, no problems. So what I'll do now is I'll turn the RF power back down on the radio. I'm going to put this into CW mode. And we're not going to worry about this right now because it's just CW. So we're just going to watch the power, and I'll see what kind of power I can get out on CW. Now this radio should be good for about 100 watts on CW. So I'll just push the PTT on the microphone here. And it starts at 2.15 watts, and I'll turn it right up to the top. And it's 97 watts out. So we know the finals are good in this radio. So we're doing pretty good so far. We just don't seem to have any receive audio, it looks like. It's transmitting audio, which tells us that, you know, the audio section in here is working to some extent. So I'll zoom back out here. It's a problem with working in front of the camera. Everything is backwards. So here we go, back on the screen here again. So we seem to have absolutely no audio receiving. So this could be a bunch of things at this point, just, you know, roughly diagnosing this without going inside it or doing anything at this point. It could be a dead speaker, right? A really simple thing. It could be an audio output IC or some sort of switching inside that's not allowing this to turn back on. And it could even be the phone's jack. Now this is the most common problem, is the headphones jack. A lot of people use these in a mobile application, and in that mobile application they plug a phone's jack into their car stereo, and they can use the car stereo in their vehicle to amplify the audio from this, and it gives them, you know, pretty robust audio in the car. Usually if you have this little speaker just going inside the car as you're driving, it's kind of hard to hear. So by using the radio as an amplifier in your vehicle, you get, you know, some pretty powerful audio. So this sees a lot of mileage, just jack in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out of this phone's jack, you know, the little phone's plug here, many times. And a lot of the times it breaks solder or just destroys the jack. So that's a really common problem. So that's what we're going to focus on next, is just to see if we can get any audio out of the actual phone's jack itself. Now I can't do that with a pair of headphones because you're not going to be able to hear if I have headphones on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rig up a small test set with a signal tracer and a small jack on it that I can plug into here, and I'll wiggle that around with a signal tracer on there, and if we get audio, you know, we'll both hear it at that point. So that's what I'll do next, and I'll be right back. I now have my night signal tracer hooked up to this audio cable with this jack on the end of it that will plug into the phone's jack on the front of this FT-900. I'm just using the signal tracer as an outboard audio amplifier so that we can both hear if any sound comes out of this FT-900 whatsoever. So I'm going to feed a signal into the front end of the Yaesu here with my signal generator. It'll be modulated by about a 600 Hertz tone. So I'll turn that on right now. See, the signal came up. It's about 6 S units. There's about a 10 microvolt signal coming in here. So the audio's down, and I'll plug this into the phone's jack here. I removed the microphone so you can see this a little bit easier. So I'll turn the audio up a little. Alright, and you can hear we have absolutely no audio still, nothing coming out of the signal tracer or out of the speaker. So what I'm going to do is move the phone's jack around a little bit, and if there is a broken connection behind there, I'll try to reestablish it by, you know, putting a little bit of sideways torsion on that, and you know, maybe just if the jack is broken itself, just kind of feel around and see if I can make any kind of connection in there. So I'll do that right now. So you can see when I put a bit of sideways torsion on it, it's trying to reestablish a connection. So let's make sure that we're actually hearing this. I'll shut the signal off and I'll turn the audio up, and we should just hear static at this point. So at this point, we definitely know that the phone's jack has an open connection in behind there. Whether the jack itself is broken or whether it's just the solder joints that are broken, we don't know at this point. And we'll have to disassemble this and open the front part of the receiver in order to get at that jack. again, is a really good chance that the reason the speaker isn't coming on is because of this jack. Now, we don't know yet. There might be more on top of this, but that'll be the next thing that we look at. The Yaesu's now apart, and it is quite a disassembly procedure, but nonetheless it's needed. So you got to take the bottom off. There's a whole bunch of screws on the bottom. You can pretty much see where they are on the outside of the case. And then when you get inside, there's a bunch of screws that loosen the face off so you can kind of tilt the face forward. And it gives you a little bit extra room to move around in here. You can actually remove the top too, which gives you more room just to work on everything. There's a whole bunch of cables here that you really don't want to undo, but if you undo this one connector up at the front and this one connector here, it'll allow you to move the top away and you can kind of get in here and work. So in order to remove the top, you have to undo two screws here on the top. You can see them right on the top of the case. And then on the rear, there's a screw here, and there's one just like it down at the bottom side here that you've got to undo, and then of course the whole top will come off. Now, in order to get at this jack in the face, that's a little bit more complex. And I'll move this around here. So the face fits on like this. See if I can get my lamp in here. Okay, so the face is held on by these screws here. There's one here, and there's two in here. You got to remove all of those. And this jack here, you got to be careful that when you're pulling the face forward that you put a little bit of pressure on this, because this is just kind of pressed in behind this face plate here. So this is the connector that connects to the detachable face plate on the FT-900. And of course the face plate is right here, right? So you want to be careful that when you're pulling the face forward that you don't, put too much strain on this connector. There's some pretty small wires in there. And then of course when you're wanting to lift the face forward, once you take the screws out, there are some clips on the bottom. You kind of have to push these little plastic tangs up. And they're all along here. There's one here. And then, I'll get my light here. There's one down here and here. And then it just kind of comes off and comes loose like this. Now, the jack that's causing the issues is this phone jack right here. And in order to get this board out, you have to undo there's retaining nuts that hold these VRs in. And the retaining nut looks like this right here. And you can kind of see it kind of has two slots in it. There's a little slot right here, and there's a little slot right here. And if you have a pair of really sharp needle nose pliers, you can kind of get them in the slots like so. And how you have to do that is you take your pliers and you put your pliers in here like this, and you just kind of turn them like so. So you do need some pretty sharp needle nose pliers in order to do that. And once you have those retaining nuts off, then of course on the back side of the circuit board here, this is the circuit board, you're going to have to remove all these screws and remove the board. Now, the jack on the back here, I can already see the bad solder joints, but it does feel like the jack might actually be broken. And I'm not going to just resolder these and put it back together without checking that jack, because that's a lot of work to take this all apart again. So if you look here, you can kind of see the, I don't know if you can see the cratered solder joints there. Let me get this up here just a little better. I don't know if you can see those. In my camera it's pretty small. See that? Cratered solder joints. They're all like that all over this whole jack. So you have to take all these screws out here, and once you take those screws out, then you can remove this board after of course you've removed these retaining nuts on here. So what I'm going to do is get behind here and check out this phone's jack and see exactly what's going on in there, and when I know more I'll be back. Alright, I've got the board loose here. And this is what the jack looks like on the inside. It looks pretty solid, doesn't look like it's broken, but I really don't know what it's like on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just desolder it off the board here, and then it looks like it's clipped together here and here, and I'm going to take a look inside this jack and see if there's any aperture inside that's broken, or maybe that's just how it feels. Maybe it's just a really soggy feeling jack. I really don't know at this point. But that's what the board looks like when it's pretty much removed. So that's where we're at this point. When I've got the jack out, I'll be back. Alright, I'm going to desolder this thing from the board here. Okay. So it looks like this thing just kind of clips in. Just as easy as that, and away we go. So the jack's out. Maybe we'll take this apart and go look at it underneath the microscope. The jack disassembles quite easily. All you really have to do is just pry up these little white tangs, one on this side and the one on this side here, and then the bottom will just kind of come off. Get this in the shot here like so. And you're in, and you can remove these individual pieces and you know, check them out, and if they're worn or anything. Sometimes they lose a little bit of spring tension. This looks like it's pretty good still inside, and it looks like the jack, there's nothing really broken in it. But there are some pieces inside here that could use some retensioning sometimes. There's a little red, I don't know if you can see that in that shot, I can just barely see it in there. That little red block is actually a switch, and in that switch it kind of moves a contact back and forth like this. And sometimes those get a little bit worn or just get a bit stretched, so you can put more tension, so that way there's more tension on the contact, either when it bottoms out or when it's in the normally closed position. So I'll address this little jack here and put it back in, and we should probably have speaker action, I'm hoping, at this point. The jack is back in up here, and I've resoldered the entire circuit board, just for reasons being that this board is in a pretty tough place to get at, and you know, these buttons do get used quite often. So by resoldering this board, we'll give them a good long service life, and if there are any problems or any other kind of cratered joints in here, at least they've been taken care of, and he won't have to worry about that for a very, very long time. That's just good practice, especially on, you know, VRs and stuff that are continually being turned, and some of these buttons that are, you know, continually being pushed. You know, that is this is a single-sided board here, and there are no plated through holes. And by having no plated through holes makes this board, you know, pretty fragile. So it's just good practice to do that when these are in a hard-to-get area. So this board should last a really long time now. The reassembly procedure is almost complete. The whole face is really put back together. All the screws are back in, and the retaining nuts on the VRs. Everything's all tight up here. One little note before I go putting the top back down here is the memory battery. Very, very easy to change. One of the easiest memory batteries to change I've ever come across. So all you have to do to get at the memory battery in an FT-900 is undo these two screws right here, take the two screws out of the lid, kind of lift the lid up like this. Alright, you put something in here like I have, like this little plastic box or something just to hold the lid up. And this memory battery isn't soldered in or anything, it's just in a little battery bracket. And how you get this out is you press down on it, bring it back a little bit, and it just kind of comes out. And then in order to replace it, all you do is you do the reverse, make sure the battery's the right polarity, press it down in, push it flat against the front and let it go, and it'll catch in these little clips here. So the battery number is a CR2032 lithium battery, and that's it. Pretty easy. So anyways, back to the reassembly procedure. I'll get this back together and we'll see if we have any audio. The Yaesu FT-900 is put back together and we're ready to try it out and see if we have any audio coming out of the speaker on the top here. I'm pretty confident that the phone's jack was the issue because the soldering was just so bad. It was all crusted up around all of the pins. Not just one or two, they were all broken. So if it isn't a problem and I do have to go back in there and correct something else, it's very easy and very quick to get inside this radio. Just a couple of screws. It would take literally a minute to get back into this radio again. So, but I'm pretty confident that that's it, and hopefully when I turn the power switch on, the speaker works so I don't have to go back in again. But I'm pretty confident about it. So I have my signal tracer here. Everything works out good. We'll plug this into the phone's jack and it should cut the speaker off, and it should transfer the audio to the signal tracer here. And then of course when we pull it out it should go back again. So I'll turn it on. It's into the dummy load here, so there's nothing really going to be received. But we should hear some static. So here it is. It's on. I'll turn up the volume here. And that's great. Speaker's working. So now what I'll do is I'll plug in the signal tracer. The gain is down on the signal tracer, so right now it's just going to cut the speaker off. Like so. And now if I turn the gain up on the signal tracer, it should come out of the signal tracer. No problems. And I'll pull it out again. And it's coming out of the radio again. Nice and solid. So that's working, no problems. So the next test will be to try it out on the air or give it an antenna and see what we can hear. Well, the radio's done and it's working very well. This is Japan coming in on the 15 meter band. So it's working very well. I've tested it in all modes and gets glowing reports, and that makes me happy, and that should make the owner very happy too. So one thing that's really odd is that this repair wasn't a really difficult repair whatsoever, and it makes me kind of wonder why the repair shop couldn't find something like a phone jack and some soldering and stuff like that. Kind of odd. One thing I do give that radio shop though is that they reassembled this radio beautifully. I would never know that they were ever inside of it. In fact, I would say that maybe they weren't even inside of it. There's no fingerprints in the dust, no anything like that. It's very clean. You would think that it's absolutely factory. And that's how I like to get things, because that makes things easier on me. I'm not chasing down two separate problems at that point. So if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, hang around, and there'll be more just like it up here in the near future. Bye for now.